Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Dice back again, and today I want to give some of my thoughts on this whole Ravnica Allegiance Mythic Edition fiasco. Now, there's a lot to talk about here and a lot of takeaways, and basically, I'm just gonna ramble. There's so much to talk about, just in general, with the actual product, with potential other products that could have been, and the whole psychology of this whole thing. And I don't know, let's just get down with it. Now it looks like it's pretty much it's a flop. uh, it's still up to be bought, as you can see. This is not a screenshot. This is right now on let's see, January 29th. And yeah, it's probably not the day it's being really put on YouTube, I know. But yeah, clearly this product is not doing as well as the last one. Yeah, I wonder why that could be. Well, first of all, let's take a look at the actual things you're getting. You know, the planeswalkers. And this is a problem Wizards of the Coast always has with their special collector bait products, that I like to call them. Uh, they don't know how to do it. I mean, they say, "Oh, look at these. We got alternate full arts and all that," but it's not full art now, is it? Does that look like full art to you? That big old text box that covers up half the thing? No, that's not full art. You may have artwork that takes up the entire space of the card, but it's not full art because it's got big text boxes right there. That's one thing they need to get rid of. If you're gonna have full art cards, get rid of the text boxes. I don't care what. It's not a draw to have artwork that covers the full card if you can't see half of it. Oh great, yeah, you drew all this stuff down here, but I can't see it. It's got a big old text box there. Get rid of the text boxes. Do like Pokemon does, and take the normal text right there and put a little outline around it so it pops out, and then you just have a couple boxes like at the top for the name and the type line and stuff like that. And there you've got full art. You've got actual full art where you can see the whole picture instead of just kind of having a silhouette of their legs show through. And then also things like this, and the masterpieces and stuff like that. I've never seen a case where they actually did compelling foiling jobs on these things. Like, every time they do foiling, it makes the original art look worse. These cards, when you see them, they're not going to look this vibrant and colorful. They're probably going to look washed out and dark because they've got a crappy foiling on them. And the foiling's supposed to make the artwork pop. It almost never does. I don't think I've ever seen some kind of specialty foiled product that actually looks like it makes the artwork pop from Wizards of the Coast. The masterpieces sure as hell didn't. I mean, you got the invocations look pretty much disgusting. All the foiling I've seen on those just make the artwork look dark and desaturated. You can't hardly see what the artwork is about because it's so dark. And then when you get the light on it, it's just rainbow colored. And the same goes for the expeditions. They looked terrible because the same thing. The art was all washed out because of the foiling. You got to be selective with the foiling. You actually have to care about where it goes and what's getting covered up. You have to make the important things pop. And they never do that. Now, the masterpieces looked alright because they were kind of brighter cards in general. And the foiling didn't really do as much to wash them out or anything. They were pretty vibrant, but that's because inherently they were. The original art was more vibrant. The frame was colorful. They looked alright, but they weren't, super special. They were okay. Now that I've ripped that apart about the artwork, there's a whole other problems with this. Like, why isn't this selling? Well, part of the thing is the whole deal with collectability is that part of the fun of collecting things is that there's some difficulty in doing so. Like normal packs, you have a random element. It's the lottery feel. You get a rush out of that. It's fun to not know what you're getting when you open a pack. And, it's difficult to actually get the whole things unless you go to the secondary market and just drop a whole bunch of money on it. There's a whole process involved in collecting through the normal means. And the same is true for, things like promos and, like other games have, well, more in digital games, they have like things you get for doing challenges and stuff, like skins for whatever, that are difficult to obtain because there's an actual challenge to it. That's where the fun comes in. With these things, with the Mythic editions, what's the challenge? The first time around, there was kind of a challenge because there are limited quantities. It's kind of a false challenge. You just get in and then get lucky that you clicked at the opportune moment where the servers weren't down or whatever. But now there's plenty. There's no rush to get them. There's nothing. There's no challenge to the collecting of them. So that's kind of a problem when they've got a game that's based on, whole randomization of things. And yeah, I guess there's not much else I can say about that. That's the problem here. It's marketed as collectible, but there's not really anything collectible about it. It's just a luxury product. Now, they did have a product that was like that. It wasn't so much of a product as a feature of an already existing product. It was the masterpieces. Now, as much as I rip those for being kind of half-baked and just generally not very well implemented, I think it was a good idea, and that's the problem with Wizards. They have a good idea, then they just drop the ball on implementing it because a lot of the times it's self-inflicted. They know what the problems are. They know what they need to do to make something successful, and then they just don't do it. They just skimp on everything and just completely fall on their face. And then that's it. They say, oh, good job, guys. It was a good run, but it was a failure because, we did all the things we knew we shouldn't have. But yeah, masterpieces were a good idea. And why is that? That's because when you had masterpieces in the sets, the value of the box in general was wrapped up primarily in the masterpieces. What that means is that you had those few masterpieces which were not required to play the game, pulled a lot of the value out of the normal cards which were required to play the game. So on the secondary market, the other cards had lower values, and for some reason that annoyed people. I don't see why, because this is the whole part where we get into the psychology of it. Like, I've seen some of this criticism from like Rudy on Alpha Investments and stuff like that, where I think he said like people want to feel like their collections have value. Yeah, that's the thing. People want to feel like their collections have value. But at the same time, the cards that they don't want to have value because they want to be able to buy them. So there's a constant struggle in there where there's a back and forth of, you want the cards to have value because it feels good, but you also don't want the cards to have value because you don't want to pay that much to have them. It's the old feeling of, oh, I like showing off my $100 Chase the Mind Sculptor, but I don't want to pay $300 for a full playset. It's that. You don't like that. But that's always going to be with the game in this case. What Wizards should have done, instead of just dropping masterpieces after one failure, is they should have kept going, fixed it up, and done this for the overall health of the game, to make sure that the game was had a low barrier to entry as far as, deck spending is concerned. So you could get into like standard or whatever with a relatively low cost deck, but then give the collectors and the investors something to put their money in and to collect and pimp out their own stuff and, all that good stuff. But instead of doing that, instead of looking at this from the overall health of the game perspective, they had one flop and decided to move on to something else. And they said, okay, these one set of masterpieces that looked god awful, obviously you guys don't want any masterpieces whatsoever. It's bad, and you're complaining about them, that your other cards don't have value, even though that's good for the game. They knew better than to do that, but they went ahead and dropped it, and they came out with this abomination. And to be fair, I don't think the Ravnica Mythic Edition things are a particularly bad product. Now, they're overpriced. They have this weird thing going on where they're basically trying to sell singles, but they have to package it with the random boosters and stuff so they can kind of deny that they're doing that. And that's part of the reason the price is so high. But overall, the idea that there's a high-end collectible version of cards that already exist, I don't have a problem with that. So that's basically my spiel right there. Now, in my own game, Domain, which I'll have some links in the description if you want to check out some of my videos on that, this is why I've gone, completely expandable card game style. No randomness whatsoever. But in light of that, I do recognize that collectability is a big part of card games in general. So I don't want to completely leave that out. That's why I've kicked around the idea of like having a booster product. But basically, it would be all cards like this. So it'd be alternate arts, full arts, foils, special foiling, stuff like that. And they'd correspond to different rarities. And I think that would give an interesting product for people who like the collectability aspect, while keeping the non-random part for people who just want to play the game. But of course, that's a moot point for Magic because it started as a collectible card game. It's always going to be collectible. There's no going to the expandable non-random route for it. And that's kind of a shame because there's a lot of inherent flaws in the collectible version, the collectible only version. And I think in the long term that's going to run the game into the ground because there's so much greed that can go into it. And as we have seen in recent years, greed of the corporate investors and stuff like that really tends to drive games into the ground because they don't care about the game. They only care about a spike in their stock value so they can sell it off and get their cash and then reinvest it somewhere else. So that's about all I've got. So don't forget to subscribe, leave me some feedback, a like, comment, whatever, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.